I often talk about composting our traumas, which is the opposite of light. It's dark, but it's fertile. It's that winter season.
Welcome to the Phase 4 podcast, inspired by Vishen Lakiani and Ajit Nawalkar, co-founders of EverCoach, a division of Vine Valley. In this podcast, we speak to coaches and creatives about where they were, where they are, and where they are going. This is the intersection of what we focus on expands, and your story is your superpower. My guest today is Eileen March. She's a writer, a spiritual coach, an energy healer, and a slow living witch. In addition, she hosts the Woo Curious podcast, which I encourage listeners of this podcast to go check out wherever you get your podcast. And today we're going to talk about all of that and more. And Eileen, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm delighted to be here.
Yeah, I'm really excited too. I always just start around with, how did you end up in this space, and kind of just tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Yeah, sure. I'm going to try to keep this somewhat succinct. It's a long and winding story, as I think so many of us have. But I guess the beginning of my story, or one of the salient features of it, is that not so long ago, let's say about 4 or 5 years ago, I would have called myself an atheist. I was like I'm still rational, but a very science-minded, and if science can't prove it, it doesn't exist type of person. But I was also a midwife. So it's interesting, as I've moved into this phase of my life where I'm now claiming the title of a witch, that in a lot of ways I was already there, but midwives were the original witches. They were the wise women, the healers. They were persecuted as witches. So it's kind of comical to me that I've ended up with this title. But I went through 2 fairly major life transitions that got me from this place of nothing exists except for the cells in our bodies. And when we die, we turn to dirt, and that's it. That's the end of the story. There's nothing else. To where I am now, practicing energy medicine and, meeting people's energy bodies. I work remotely. So I'll drop into my clients' energy fields while they go about their day, do my work, send over my insights. And so if I told myself that that's what I would be doing 5 years ago, I would have called myself pretty woo, entirely crazy. But I was in a marriage that was psychologically abusive. And I was in a job that was really, really taxing emotionally and physically. Midwifery is amazing, but it's not, the way that it's run, especially in Canada, it's not really sustainable. And so I had these 2 really big kind of awakening. The first was when I left my marriage finally and had this sudden expansion of what life could be. I think I bought my first tarot deck within a week of leaving, and just realizing how unhappy I was. I remember saying to a friend, I had no idea how unhappy I was because I'm so happy now. And just kind of finding my way back to myself and allowing myself to explore those possibilities. And then the second one came with leaving midwifery. And that decision was hurried along by COVID, because COVID took away a lot of the coping mechanisms for dealing with that particular career path. But partway through COVID, I started exploring personal growth. My friend was in a coaching program. It sounded like a really cool, I'd never even heard of coaching, life coaching. But I was like, oh, that sounds like you're really learning and growing. I'm going to take that program through the Center for Applied Neuroscience in Toronto. And about at the same time, another previous midwife was offering a year-long Wild Woman energy medicine mentorship program. And I was like, that just sounds really cool. I'm going to take that. And the combination of those 2 things led me to say, okay, I'm going to jump ship. I'm getting out of this world of midwifery, and I'm going to continue to support women in their embodied empowerment journeys, but just on a different kind of trajectory, I guess, with coaching and healing.
Wow. Yeah, that's awesome. That's such a great story, and expansion, growth, everything we're doing here. While we focus on expands, your stories are superpower. I wonder about
the energy healing. But even before that, so the midwife thing. So when COVID happened, were all midwives just like, you're not allowed to do this anymore?
No, I mean, babies don't stop coming.
No, I know that. I'm just wondering if the
Yeah.
hospitals like are taking over.
I remember in the early days of COVID being so jealous of all my friends who got to be off work initially or stay home for 2 weeks. And I was like, I want to stay home for 2 weeks. I want to not go to work. No, we had to keep working. So nothing about the care we were providing changed, except for suddenly we had to be masked. You know, weren't allowed to give our clients hugs. We had to keep our distance. As midwives, you know, something that always used to be really fueling or fulfilling was after a really long, like all night birth, we'd all go to a breakfast place together and, you know, bond and connect with the other midwives who were in the same situation. And suddenly we couldn't do that either. I was single at the time. And so I was alone in my house and just feeling really isolated. And I used to travel a lot. And so when I'd have time off, all I'd always be traveling, and that would be fueling me or filling my cup. And all of a sudden I couldn't do that either. So it was concurrently too, my two best friends moved across the country that first summer of COVID. So there was kind of like a lot of factors, but the actual job of midwifery, it just took a lot of the joy out of it.
Sure.
And made it was so much fear and stuff. So that was really hard to walk that path for the first little while.
Yeah. Lots of changes for everybody right around that time. And I heard somebody say, like, we might think that we're coming back from it differently, but the whole world, every single person's coming out of it differently. It's a collective kind of a trauma that happened.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm seeing so much of that. I mean, not only in what I'm reading, I talk a lot about rest. So part of my title of Witch is the slow living piece. And I don't know that I am fully embodied in that because I still live in this world, but it's something that I aspire to. And this sense of reclaiming our right to slow down. And I think that, you know, we've been functioning loosely in society for a long time in this state where that humans aren't really meant to function in. And COVID really just kind of like stripped away all of our reserves and left us collectively, traumatized without the support that we need, the connections that we need to heal and rebuild. And so that's part of my calling as a healer, really, is to help with the healing that this world needs, to do my little part.
I love it. That's what it's all about here. We're trying to get light workers and spread the message, and you're a light worker. And I wonder that rest thing, does that come with the energy side? Because like you said, that 3D world that we're living in, it's hard. You just go. Even now, it's still hard to kind of stop. But is that where the energy comes in, where you're trying to do it the energy way, or maybe not?
Partly, I mean, I think that the energy healing piece can be really soothing to the energy body, right? There is certainly times when I'll go into a client's energy. This happened yesterday where it was almost like I just held her and let her rest with me during that time. When I work like one-on-one over Zoom doing energy healing, that hour is an opportunity for people to lay down and do nothing while I do the work as well, which is restful. And then the other piece is really dismantling a lot of the beliefs that we've grown up with. Everybody in our society is affected by the like productivity is where our worth is measured, that hustle mentality. And then women have the added layer of like, you have to put everybody else first. You can't rest until everybody else's needs have been met. Your needs are less important. And so it's like this compounding of this exhaustion that we're all living with.
Right. Those archetypes have been handed down so long that they're so deeply ingrained that even I'm glad we're seeing women rise up, but even as we see it, it's going to take longer, right? There are some, but for others, it's going to take much longer. I want to stick kind of with the energy world because there's so many different ways we can do it. You talked about energy medicine. I'm not sure if the city Center for Applied Neuroscience in Toronto, if that was for energy medicine or life coaching or a mix of both, but let's kind of talk with the energy world. What kind of energy healing is it?
Sure. Yeah. So it is unique to my mentor. I believe that, I mean, she has trainings in a variety of different energy medicine and just a lot of it accumulated experience over the course of her, I think, 20 plus years in that field. And then she was a midwife prior as well. And she calls it wild medicine energy healers training. And so the closest approximation, I think, I've never actually had a Reiki session, but it is similar from what I know of Reiki. It's similar to Reiki in that, like, going in, meeting the energy body, manipulating energies, but it's also an added layer. The actual training I did encompassed like whole human well-being. We talked about the energies of the 4 directions, the moon cycle, the women's menstrual cycle, all of these other pieces of holistic health. And my own personal experience when I drop in to heal is also a lot of intuitive insights or downloads. So the beginning of my sessions is always like, okay, I'm going to meet your energy body and like see what you have to say, like see what you have to show me. I'm quite clairvoyant when I work, and so I get visuals of like, like you're holding a rock and a suitcase, like, what does this maybe mean to you? Or yeah, crystals, they're never far. We've got lots of them on my desk too, but there's these like visual messages that come through of perhaps the areas to explore, questions to sit with, and like quote unquote homework often to try to engage with and peel the next layer. And then the energy work itself is a lot to do with you opening up the chakras, letting that energy flow, replenishing areas that are depleted, all of those kinds of things.
Nice. Is there something that you see like kind of across the board? Obviously not every single, but like one thing that stands out that people, I'm just, when you're saying chakras, I'm like, oh, people are always blocked in these kind of areas. But is there one thing that you see more than others that maybe somebody can help heal themselves right now?
Yeah, I would say for women, often it's the throat chakra that is quite blocked. That, speech part, speaking our needs, speaking our truths. You've already referenced it. Like, we've got centuries of women being silenced and afraid for their lives if they speak up, back to the burning times and the witch trials. So that one's a really common one. And I often work to connect that throat to the heart and to the sacral, because I think a lot of our truths live deeper in our bodies. And to connect the ability to speak those deeper truths, the ones that come from our heart, that come from our sacral part of our body, that deep gut knowing, is powerful. And I think that in terms of people healing themselves, it's practicing in safe relationships, right? Practicing speaking those truths and those deeper feelings and thoughts and everything with somebody who feels really safe.
100%. That's my favorite compliment I get, is that you hold a really safe space wherever I'm in groups or one-on-one. And man, that is like, I don't know, affirmation, or it just feels really good. Like, nice. That's what I'm going for, right? And so just for people to feel that.
Yeah, that compassion and non-judgmental space of like, all of you is welcome here.
Tell us about My Luminous.
Sure. Yeah. It's interesting. I recently changed my Instagram handle from My Luminous Life back to just my name. I think when I was first starting, I was really looking for, a business name, something that was apart from me. And the further into the work I go, the more it feels a bit more or less separate, I guess. But I really intentionally chose Luminous Life because a lot of what happens when we start to take away the beliefs and the behaviors and the traumas or heal them or move through them and stepping into our own power, our own truth, is that people become brilliant. They shine. They're luminous. And so my current one-on-one offering also speaks to that, the rekindled offering. And so it's the sense that we all have that spark, that ember inside of us, and it might have been really dimmed over the course of our lifetimes, and finding the way to like rekindle that inner hearth fire so that you are once again glowing and luminous. And then beyond that, it encompasses all of the other things that I do. I hold women's ceremony for the Wheel of the Year celebrations. I hold a 6-week course. Actually, it'll be coming up when this podcast airs. It's coming up in September again, called Unleash Your Inner Witch, a beginner's guide to light witchcraft for the woo curious, which is really a kind of an exploration of, we talk about tarot, we talk about crystals, but we talk about sacred starts and living more cyclically, like with the seasons and with our bodies. So it's the title of our business of My Luminous Life is fairly encompassing.
I love it. I love the idea of light. And now that you said the seasons, I'm all about 90 days. That's my thing, is 90 days at a time. What do you want to create? 12 weeks, seasonal. It's perfect. And I think part of that maybe for me and you, where other people in the world might not get it, is that we live in Canada and the seasons are so distinct. The seasons are there, like 90 days, like this is winter and then this is summer. Where other parts of the world, it's kind of just like this the whole time, right? It's the same.
Mm-hmm.
There's a Rumi quote, and it says, "The wound is the place where the light enters you."
Mm-hmm.
And it sounds kind of like that's what you're doing when you're taking from the chakras even, but just in general with My Luminous Life and trials and tribulations, pain to purpose, tragedy to triumph. And I kind of wonder, does that quote, have you ever heard it, or does it resonate with you or anything?
I have heard that one before, yeah, and it very much resonates. I think something that unites us as human beings is that we all have wounds. Nobody gets through this life unscarred or unscathed. And the ability to take those wounds and see how they can allow us to grow or to shape us and to rise beyond or above them. I often talk about composting our traumas, which is the opposite of light. It's dark, but it's fertile. It's that winter season, right? If we're thinking in that seasonal way of living, that, when we heal from our wounds, we're not getting rid of them. They still are part of us. The experiences we've had, even if we're ready to move past them, they still are part of our inner ecosystem, and they can provide fertile soil for the new growth.
Wow, that's beautiful. It's so true, right? That's my thing, is your story's your superpower. And it's like, how can you take the worst thing that's happened to you and make it the best? And then the other side of that coin is, even if it's not like something hasn't happened, you can create it from wherever you are. Start right now, right today. And what do you want to make and create? Let's do it that way.
Mm-hmm.
And I meant before, you were talking about tarot. So I see that on your shelf there's tarot cards, oracle cards. I wonder, what are the like pink ones, like just beside that? Yeah.
That one, is an archetype deck by Kim Kranz. She's quite well known in the tarot world. They're circular cards, but they're oracle cards with a whole bunch of different archetypes.
Awesome. I love your bookshelf. And on the bottom row underneath tarot, is that the Untethered Soul in the corner?
Yes.
Oh, I got good eyes.
You
very
do.
End. At the very end?
Oh, yeah, over there. Oh, actually, that is not, but it's somewhere. It's like there. That one's gardening under the arch, which is, I live in Calgary, as we mentioned, and we get Chinook winds, and like our climate is just crazy. So it's really actually an interesting zone to garden in. And so that's a book about that.
Are you able to drink water? I heard there's a water problem in Calgary right now, but I heard it might be solved in the next few days.
Yeah, it's the main water main that feeds the city broke 3-4 weeks ago. And they turned the water back on in that pipe yesterday, and it's still filling. It's huge, like you could drive a truck through it. And they're hoping that the like ban will be lifted. We were still able to drink water. The one community where it broke had like a boil water advisory for the first week, but they got that sorted out pretty quickly. And then it was just like, using less water. We weren't allowed to water outside for plants and stuff, and just like encouraged to be really mindful of water use inside.
It's fascinating that how much we take it for granted. Like we had no water a couple weeks ago. Something broke in our house and it was just a mess, right? But you don't realize until you don't have it how much we just take it for granted.
Oh yeah, hugely. It's incredible that like, oh wow, we use a lot and we waste a lot. of water in the way that we live. But yeah, the modern conveniences of life are not not to be taken for granted is what these kind of situations remind us of.
Yeah, that's how I look at it. It's like a lesson, like, okay, wake up or pay attention. And I think I want to know about your podcast. I think it's awesome. And maybe because I'm a podcaster, I know my own initiative and evolution and all of it. And so I'm always curious when I meet other people who have podcasts, what made them start it? What is it about? Obviously, what kind of conversations are you having? And then where do you see it going, or has it evolved? Mine, I'll give you, for the first 50 or so episodes, it didn't evolve. And then it turned into something else. And then it just keeps changing into some other. It's almost like you shed layers, or you learn and you grow, and then it becomes something even more. And now that I'm saying this, looking back, it's like, oh, that's what I wanted from the beginning, but I didn't really see the path.
Yeah. Oh, I'm glad you asked, because I love podcasting. I think it's funny. I love connecting with people. I really love my one-on-one work. And when I think about it, if I could focus on podcasting, because it has such a broad reach and the conversations are so nourishing, I would love to make that my living for the most part. But I started it actually with a friend who I'm in a business mastermind, like a coaching business mastermind. And she's in there. She's also a witchy woman. She's a priestess. And we started, I think when we started, it was kind of my idea to get going, but I was afraid of doing it on my own. And I was like, how would I fill time on my own? So we started it together. As you know, the intro says, the map to the mystical, the key to the sacred, the guide back home to yourself. And our conversations initially were kind of like, teaching what witchcraft is, teaching about the tarot, about soul or spirit guides, these kinds of more teacherly type topics, delivering information. And when she made the decision that she wanted to branch off and do her own thing, it was very amicable. It was just her wanting to really embrace, she's a sacred sensuality priestess. And so she really wanted to go in on that side of things more. I was initially really afraid, and then suddenly felt like, oh, I can expand now. Now this is mine. And so it's a blend. There's shorter episodes that are solo episodes where I drop in and just teach and talk about whatever it is that I'm seeing kind of thematically come up for my clients in my own life, any nuggets of wisdom that have landed that's like, oh, you need to know this. And then sprinkled in are interviews with other women so far, but it's not, I think there's a few people in the pipeline who identify as men who I'm going to be having on soon. But following that spiritual thread, or I really enjoy talking to people about their journey into embracing the woo, because for so many of us, we started off with magic being just part of being a kid, right? There's magic in childhood. And then a lot of us lose it because it's not realistic, it's not cool, it's not whatever, accepted. And then so many of us have found our way back to it in our adulthood, and it's informed our work. So I speak to people about, what brought them into the work that they're doing now, that journey with the woo, why it's helpful. And just, again, you talk about the power of stories. It's so helpful to hear other people's journeys in our own journey to make us feel less alone.
That's awesome. I love this. I think that sounds like intuition too, right? You're just letting the intuition guide the conversation, guide you on what to do next. And I love the evolution. And then you said something that you were kind of scared at first when you did it, but there's another quote from Joseph Campbell: "The cave you fear to enter holds the treasure that you seek."
Mm-hmm.
I find this all the time in life. Whatever it is, like if you're scared, it's because it's important and you want it. It's not. It might be a little bit of scared of failing, but it's more scared of getting it. What am I going to have to do? And then what will that look like? And so when we do enter, though, then that's the treasure. You get the treasure on the other side of that fear if you run through it.
Yeah. That speaks to that neuroscience piece as well, of your brain is designed to keep you safe, and the unknown is inherently unsafe to your really, your reptilian part of your brain. And so that that unknown cave is always scary to enter. And I think that that's, again, it's such a beautiful piece of having light workers, of having coaches, of having people to support you through those big leaps. I had a one-on-one coach at the time who was able to first talk to me about, did I want to continue on my own? And I did. I didn't want to lose the podcast. And then support me in that, okay, you're going to do it. You're going to be fine. It's so often that external reflection of our strength that can really help us move through those times of uncertainty or big change.
Nice. You want to hear uncertainty? When I started this podcast, I don't know if you remember, or maybe you wouldn't even have heard it, but a couple of years ago, there was this tornado kind of came all the way from Toronto right through to Montreal, and it was bad everywhere. So the power went out, and we're out of the country. The actual, not the internet at our house, but the actual lines and towers got ripped right out of the ground. It was messy. And so we didn't have internet at our house for a month. And so, yeah, so I already had the first 2 episodes booked and ready to go. And I'm I guess I could reschedule it. But then I was wait a minute, maybe, what if this is the universe testing me to see how bad I want it? So I went to the library, rented a room in the library, and I recorded those first 2 episodes. But you know how when you're in a library, you can't speak, right? Everyone be quiet. So the walls in this room were wood. And I wasn't thinking of that at the time, but the second that we got on the call and I pressed record, I started speaking and the echo was just, it was so bad. But the universe was testing me at the time, and that's how I took it. And now here we are today, 170 episodes later. So I think it worked out.
I'd say so. Yeah. The perseverance, it is rewarding if we can move through those challenges, those challenging times. We're almost always rewarded.
Agreed. And so as we begin to wind down, if this episode resonates with you, please like, subscribe, share, and follow. No hard sell. And reach out to Eileen March. She's got My Luminous Life. She has the Woo Curious podcast. And you can tell from this conversation just the kind of nurturing person she is. So reach out to her. And I think I ask everyone this. This is the Phase 4 podcast, and Phase 4 in the 6-phase meditation by Vishen Lakhiani. It's all about creating your future 3 years out. So where is Eileen March 3 years from today?
Oh, that's a beautiful question. I am still podcasting. And I am still holding ceremony for the Wheel of the Year. And I am a published author by then. My book is about halfway written currently. It's called The Courage to Rest. Keep your eyes open. And and I'm supporting humans to come home to themselves, come home to their bodies and the earth.
Brilliant. I want to touch on the book after, but tell us more about the Wheel of the Year.
Yeah. So the Wheel of the Year is, in modern times, it's a pagan calendar. The Wiccans in the 70s kind of picked up this ancient Celtic calendar and started having celebrations much like the ancient Celts did. And a lot of those traditions have come through. Still to this day, we celebrate at a lot of those same times, but they're the 4, the equinoxes and the solstices, and then the midway points in between. So we get things like May Day, Yule for Christmas. We have Samhain, which is Halloween. Ostera is Easter. It happens a little before we celebrate Easter now, but a lot of them are really familiar. And it's a really beautiful way for me as I entered into this practice. It's been the most kind of grounding way to remind myself to slow down and to pay attention to the seasons and the energies that each season has innately within it, and moving with those seasons. And then the coming together piece is so important because, again, connection. We talked about COVID earlier and the loneliness epidemic that has come from that. And there's still a real lack of connection for so many people. So coming together in that safety of community and connection for those 8 celebrations is the foundation of the way I live, and it's the foundation of my practice.
Yeah, that's awesome. I didn't know any of that. That's very interesting. I'd have to learn. Did you have one resource for that would be above all to go check out? If not, it's okay. I'm gonna check it out.
Yeah, I mean, I really like it's a website called Learn Religions. If you type in Wheel of the Year, you'll get all of them. It's a pretty good resource there. If you're looking for a Canadian hard copy resource, Carmen Spagnola is a witch and she lives out on Vancouver Island. She has a book called The Spirited Kitchen. I am not an affiliate, I'm just a massive fan. And it goes through the Wheel of the Year with recipes and like crafts and things, but it also has a really beautiful history of the meaning of it. So that's that purple one right there.
Nice. And then about the book, Courage to Rest. I love the title, but tell us about the book.
Yeah. So I started writing it, or had the idea for it like almost 2 years ago now. And actually, this is how I know Carissa, because we're in the same book writing container. But it's coming from that knowing, that deep knowing that we all as a society need to slow down. We need to rest. We need to give ourselves time to process, to grieve, to heal, to return to our bodies, to the earth, to ourselves. And so it's kind of, my book coach and I are like, what is it? Like, is it a how-to? Is it a memoir? There's poetry in there? I don't know. I love writing. And so we're just kind of letting it be this nebulous thing at the moment. And when it coalesces, it's going to be part memoir, part, practical ways to incorporate more rest into your world, part educational, and then some poetry, because why not?
I love it. For the workaholics out there, that sounds like slowing down to speed up, right? You get a little rest and then it allows you to go further. Sometimes my wife, she's running, I don't have the time to meditate or anything like this. And I'm like, it's because you don't meditate. You would have so much more time in your day that it's still 24 hours, but you accomplish much more.
Yeah, I think that's part of the wisdom of the Wheel of the Year too. For me, that's been the foundation of my permission to rest, because our society operates in a perpetual spring, summer energy. Like, the seeds are growing, we're harvesting. The seeds are growing, we're harvesting. But that's not how nature works. With the seeds, we have to first fertilize the soil, let those leaves drop, get rid of the things that are no longer needed in the fall. Then we need the winter for those leaves and things to compost and nourish the soil and nurture the seeds that are in the dark. And then the spring comes and it grows. And then we harvest. And in the Celtic calendar, the day starts at sundown and the year starts at Samhain on November 1st. And so we start in the dark. We begin with rest. It is the foundation.
Wow. That's so interesting. So I usually, before I ask my final question, let the guests kind of take it wherever they want. So if you have something to sell it. You told us about this upcoming course. Or if you have a message of hope or wisdom or just something we didn't talk about, or all of it, combine however you want and just take it wherever you want.
Sure, yeah. So I will briefly mention the Unleash Your Inner Witch course. Again, it is a 6-week course. It's a group program. And it's kind of a taste of, all of the different ways we can engage with the magical sides of life. For me, witchcraft is really about, again, connecting with our bodies, connecting with the earth, remembering the wisdom that lives in the plants and the animals and in our bones, really. It's about a collective community of care and respecting all life, human, non-human. And so when I talk about witchcraft, that's what it is. It's this remembering and like remembering of the wisdom that we've lost. And that will lead into, I'm actually currently brewing a program, a year-long mentorship program that'll be a blend of one-on-one and some ceremony that's in group, really tapping into this deeper wisdom and Wheel of the Year with that one-on-one coaching and healing support. And the final piece of like wisdom, the thing that I always like to offer people, and again, another foundation of my practice, is to let yourself be right. Yeah. We make ourselves wrong so often. So what happens when you let yourself be right?
That's perfect. I'm just going to leave it right there. My final question is just, how can people reach you?
Yeah, so you can come find me on Instagram at I am Eileen March, or at, well, the Woo Curious podcast, I might be just like combining that into my personal page. So at I am Eileen March, you can find my website, which is myluminouslife.ca, or you can reach me by email, eileen@myluminouslife.ca.
Amazing. We'll put all those in the show notes. And Eileen, thank you so much for today. This has been amazing.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a real pleasure.